What's going on, everyone? The Arid Lord is back. Welcome back to another Season 10 vlog for The Walking Dead. This time we're going to be previewing Episode 5 of Season 10. And this episode is called What It Always Is. The description for this episode is supplies go missing when from Hilltop. Negan is idolized by an Alexandrian. Ezekiel holds a secret. Now, I can already tell you from the previews, we kind of know already that the person who is idolizing Negan is none other than Brandon. We know nothing about Brandon. The interesting thing is in the comics, we know a lot about Brandon because he has a personal beef with Rick and had a loved one who had their head cut off and put on the pike. So they were frustrated with how Rick, in the comics, who was still there around the time of the Whisperers, was handling the Whisperer threat. And so he is actually the one in the comics to release Negan from prison and run off with him when he escapes. Now, obviously, this is different because Negan seemingly leaves of his own volition because he doesn't want to be tried for something where he did the right thing in trying to help Lydia. We don't know who released him from prison. Maybe it's Brandon. I don't know, but I'd be very interested to find out that. I don't know if we'll be told this episode. If you guys have any theories about that, write them below. I'm not really here to theorize about who let him out, but I think that I don't know. I can't see Brandon lasting too long. I think he's dead weight to Negan. Whatever Negan's plans are beyond the walls of Alexandria, he's dead weight. Now, I'm kind of surprised they went this route because Negan's already been out of Alexandria once. And this happened last season when his gate was just left unlocked by Gabriel by accident. He went back to the sanctuary, kind of, relived the life a little bit, realized what a rundown piece of crap it was. Basically hung up the cleats, per se, as in putting the savior past behind him. And I think he said that in his conversation with Judith when he got shot off the bike, that there's nothing there for him, and that being a part of the world of Alexandria, the society that they're trying to build, is a much better prospect. And Negan even says this to Daryl last episode, where Negan says he was buying into the moral code per se, but the way they're treating Lydia, the way they're treating Negan, the whisper phobia that's going around, it's not helping matters, and no one's standing their ground on who they are, and it's pretty disappointing to someone like Negan who seemingly was believing in these ways. So the episode seems to be split between whatever's going on in Hilltop with Ezekiel. There's also some pictures of Angel Theory's character, Kelly. And this is a really cool photo I'm going to show you guys right here of her walking around. It's like a silhouette. The actress put this on her Instagram. It's a silhouette of her in the woods. And the preview clip, one of the preview clips, shows her with her slingshot taking out some walkers. I'm just interested. I don't know if they're giving her more screen time in this episode. It would certainly seem like it. I'm not sure what this plot is beyond the wall. We know that Daryl, maybe even Connie and the dog, are venturing outside the walls of Alexandria to find Negan. So they're hunting for Negan. And I don't know what the supplies go missing from Hilltop. So is there some sort of sabotage going on at the Hilltop? I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how Ezekiel would have a part in that. Ezekiel really just seems to have the same case as Sadiq, where both are reeling from the fact that they've lost so much, and they're trying to pick up the pieces. And they're doing it in different ways, and Ezekiel, as we saw last episode, really struggling, just kissed Michonne right out of the blue. We know now from the trailer that that wasn't a relationship. It was just a romantic, just a whimsical kind of brain fart, really. Just the pressurized gas leak coming from Ezekiel's brain, just as he's trying to process things. Now that he's not with Carol, he doesn't have a lover, so he's maybe trying to get out some of that sexual tension that he's had pent up since leaving her. So I don't know what they're going to do with Ezekiel this episode. Kind of think of it, I mean, it was interesting to see his dilemma, the fact that he rode out by himself last episode. I don't know what they're going to do with him. This is uncharted territory because Ezekiel is one of the Pike victims, if not the biggest Pike victim in the comics. In the comics, he's like the big reveal, or whereas Henry is the big reveal in the show, it's actually Ezekiel in the comics. So Ezekiel is on borrowed time, and I use that term because Michael Cutlitz, who plays Abraham, used that term because Abraham's character in the comics was supposed to be shot by Dwight's arrow with the crossbow, and Denise got that death instead. So Abraham, after that point, was on borrowed time. He died a little bit later when he was Luciled. He was the first Lucille victim, but he used that term to describe a character that outlives its pace in the comics. Now, I would say someone like Carol is an exception because, I mean, she's really on borrowed time, but they're taking her character in a different direction than the comics. They're making her a strong leader-esque, like some comic characters who aren't around. So I can give an exception to that, even though that's super borrowed time. But this is really like a character. Ezekiel was, you know, a leader of one of the three big communities. Not to mention the fact that community is gone. Like in the comics, the kingdom is still around, but in the show, they axed it. After the fair debacle, they just left, and the snowstorm just destroyed it, and that was it. Like, no more kingdom. It's just Hilltop, Alexandria, and whatever scenes they do at Oceanside. Like, it's not... And I said this earlier before the season started, how I liked how they narrowed the focus, because you could focus on your characters more instead of forgetting them episode to episode. You can spend more time with these characters, the small cast that you got, and give them more development rather than having 700 communities. Season 7 and 8 suffered from that problem, and I've made many vlogs talking about this topic, but I just thought it was worth mentioning again. We also know that Alpha is in this episode. They, like, the Whisperers are in this episode, and they're walking around in the woods, they're talking to each other. I don't know what they're talking about, I don't know what they're trying to do, but there are scenes with them, as I saw in the preview. So, you know, you got Negan out in the open with Brandon, and you got the Whisperers coming around, maybe trying to make sure, like, they're making sure the survivors aren't in their territory. So, are we going to go the comic route? Because I know a lot of you guys might know what happens when Negan does, in the comics, come across Alpha. But I don't want to talk about that too much, because based on what... I might discuss that. Based on what happens in episode 5, I might discuss it. But I need to see what direction... Like, this episode's going to be telling. Because once we have this Negan outside being hunted episode, like, I'm going to need... Because it's aligning very nicely and very conveniently with the pace of the comics. But I need to be careful because I don't know if they're going for the straight adaptation. Because it seems like they are. But based on what happens in this upcoming episode, that's going to really be the episode. This episode 5 is where they're going to show their cards. Now, it's interesting because last year, episode 5 was Rick's final episode. This was a completely different occasion last year. We didn't know about the movies, about what they were doing with Rick. I was worried about how the show was even going to survive without Rick. But it's been amazing, marvelous. I've sung Angela Kang's praise many times over the year since Rick departed. She made the show enjoyable, and she brought it back to its horror roots. The Whisperers really brought out a lot in the show, and I'm happy for it. But I think this episode's going to be a big tell. Because keep in mind, too, we only have 6, 7, and 8 after this episode. There's only 3 more in this half of the season. So I don't know what they're going to do to cap it off. The mid-season finale last year was a bit of a cliffhanger. They were in that graveyard after Jesus' death, surrounded by Whisperers in the spooky graveyard. So I don't know if they're going to do another cliffhanger. I mean, they sometimes do for mid-season finales. Sometimes they don't. You're always going to get some kind of cliffhanger so that you can be waiting for the next episodes to come. But I don't know. I don't know what route they're going to go in these next couple of episodes, because again, you have the tension with the communities, but you see, there's two big plot points that I'm, I guess, wondering about, that I'd like you guys to comment on. And again, if you know spoilers, or you've seen the AMC premiere, because there's a couple of YouTube channels that upload clips from the AMC premiere episode where it airs early for people who have that subscription, and then I see it on YouTube. So please, if you know that, like, don't talk about it. This discussion vlog is for people who haven't seen the episode and want to predict it, with like predict things that are going to happen. That's why I do these preview prediction vlogs. So please, if you have AMC Premiere, or you follow, there's one YouTube channel in particular that puts out, I don't even know how it gets away with it, because it's like blatant copyright strikes that should be applied to the channel, but somehow they get away with putting up full clips that with titles, like full spoilery titles as to what happens in the clips. And again, like, it's frustrating if I'm going through my subscription feed, or I've had to unsubscribe from the channel at this point. So yes, so please don't spoil anything. But to get back to my point, I'm curious between two things. What's going on at Hilltop with the missing supplies and Ezekiel? Is that related? Is the missing supplies and Ezekiel, are those two things related? And what's going to become of Negan and Brandon? Because in another preview clip, we see Negan save a woman on a like a commuter rail bus. And there's a couple of walkers coming towards her. Negan kills the walkers and saves this woman. Now, this is just like some random woman. Is she a whisperer that doesn't have her gear on? That's like, if she's not from the main communities, that's my only guess. Like, how could she be from some new civilization that just suddenly is in the area that we don't know about? I mean, Scott Gimple pulled that on us with the Scavengers, with Georgie's band of hippies, like these groups that were like in and around the fight zone between Rick's group and Negan's saviors, but somehow hadn't been affected. Like, I wasn't understanding that, like, unless the Scavengers really were to themselves and just kind of avoided detection. But I would have to assume that this lady that Negan saves is in some way related to the Whisperers. Like, maybe that's how Negan gets introduced to them. That's my theory right now. It seems the most logical explanation for people who've seen the clip. Like, it's the Talking Dead clip that they preview and they show. So that's all I can think of right now. So, not knowing anything, those are my predictions. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting prospect. I could see the show going many different routes. Although at this point, I think Carol is the most, I've said this before, that Carol is the most logical person to kill Alpha. Negan would be a wild card, as it was, I'll just say, as it was in the comics, it was a wild card. But Carol, given the fact that she lost her son, they had that, in episode 3, she tried to kill Alpha, they had that stare down. Carol said she doesn't fear Alpha, she looks at her and sees nothing. In the first episode, at the very end, Carol looks up and she sees Carol looking down at her, like they're across that chasm. They're looking at each other. They've built up this showdown between basically the strongest females in the show. I mean, Carol and Alpha are foils of one another, and it really would make sense for them to get into some huge battle altercation and for Carol to get the kill. That's just my belief. But if they wanted to trick us and they wanted to subvert our expectations, as Game of Thrones love to do, then I'd say Negan would be the guy to do it. I just don't know. Is this because again, this is the revealing episode. Is he going to be assimilated into the Whisperers? Will we see a double agent in him doing this? So, things to think about. Let me know, comment below, and I can't wait for this one. I'm just like, I'm going into this episode with so many questions, and I'm just excited in many ways. So, I hope you guys are too, and yeah, stay tuned, and let's hope that this is another solid episode. So, see you guys. Thanks.